whatever you want.
Hey, 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 we're back with On the Fringe with Gav and Dave and Dave and Gav. And we're here today to discuss what, Dave?
We are going to be talking about the second part of our podcast from last week about transnational crime, transnational organized crime in the Golden Triangle.
And this week the subheading is Alice doesn't live here anymore, which I'm very proud of. I worked on that subheading for some time. Now,
So, can you enunciate how much time?
can I can I be a little more specific? Let me cogitate on that, good sir. Uh, about 5 seconds. It suggested itself pretty naturally because, of course, the lady of the week is the one, the only, the Dave
Alice Guo.
Alice Guo, former mayor of a town in the Philippines whose name I sadly cannot remember.
I cannot pronounce it.
I
it.
have memory problems. He has pronunciation problems, folks. It's a wonderful podcast. I'm very proud to be on the fringe.
Our listenership of 3 has dropped down to 1.
Thank you, Ann Leanne. We're glad you're still sticking around.
It's called, I think, Bonbon or Bamban. I don't know.
Bon bon. That could be, I'm sure our Filipino audience, our vast Filipino audience, which is also probably going to dwindle to about one person after today, I'm sure they're going to reach out and they're going to correct our pronunciation. I'm just going to say bon bon and hope I'm in the right region of the world. Anyways, she was a mayor of this town for a couple of years, I believe. Successful. People liked her. She was handing out cash in the street. No one was asking a lot of questions. And then people began to wonder where she was getting all that wonderful money. And that's where the trouble started, because it turns out our good friend Alice was not, in fact, a Filipino citizen. And when questioned on the veracity of her origins, had a very peculiar story, almost like a Roald Dahl book or something. She grew up on a pig farm with the stepmother. She didn't know anyone's name. It was a little embarrassing. And it went from embarrassing to just downright criminal because
Why?
she was running a giant illegal compound. Oh my God. There was fraud and scamming and drugs and illegal imported liquor. And oh my gosh. And she wasn't even a Filipino politician. I mean, this is, taking jobs away from hardworking Filipino politicians who are just trying to make an honest and dishonest living. So she had big problems. But then the plot gets even muddier, Dave. Alice Guo was called before a Senate hearing in Manila, and she is a no show. So eventually, the good president of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., makes some rather heated inquiries as to her whereabouts. And what does he find, Mr. Bowling?
Well, Alice Guo has flown the coop, and she is no longer in Wonderland. She is likely in Jakarta.
Which is not Wonderland. For all those listeners wondering, that's in fact a different place altogether. Jakarta.
Jakarta is a land of wonder, and Indonesia is a land of wonder, but it is not Wonderland. Let's make that distinction right here.
Oh, there are many wondrous things one can find in Jakarta, so I've been told. But I don't believe Lewis Carroll ever went there. So, also, I mean, we can throw this in here too. Jakarta, I think, de facto, is still the capital of the Republic of Indonesia, but de jure, it is in the process of moving to Nusantara, which is in the middle of Kalimantan and Borneo. So, Jakarta, the old capital, formerly called Batavia, the old capital of Dutch East Indies, now Jakarta, capital of the Republic of Indonesia, in the process of being left behind. But that's another debacle for another day. In the meantime, there's some serious issues back in the good old Philippines because after this flying the coop, we can't find this woman. Where did she go? They raided the compound. They found all of this illegal stuff all over the place. They found some people who've been working as slave labor. Not a great sight. They also discovered that there were bank accounts in Panama. And do you have the number in front of you?
I don't, but it was very, very large.
It was over $100 million US, I believe.
It was tremendous. It was very, very large. I'm looking right now. So 90 accounts with over $28 billion, 28 billion pesos in transactions, and the Philippine government has seized over 7 billion in assets. So I think it's about 300 million US. It's a lot of money that's been flowing through Alice Guo's coffers and through her scam farm that she had set up and her compound that she had set up.
In a remote
And
town in the northern Philippines. And
yes,
the estimation of the bribe she paid to get out of the Philippines was
it was
around
about
3.5.
yeah, it was around 3.5 million US to get out. So she essentially bribed her way out from what it looks like. And her quote sister, who is a Chinese national, who did not make it out of the Philippines, stayed behind, basically spilled the beans and said that Alice had this very large and elaborate plan to escape, and basically told everything step by step, where they went from a small boat to a larger boat to Malaysia. Philippines and Malaysia are very close to each other, especially the Western Philippines and Sabah and Sarawak, the eastern parts of Malaysia, very near each other. She went from there, somehow ended up in Bali, and then somehow ended up in Kuala Lumpur. There's a photo of her supposedly from KLIA, Kuala Lumpur International Airport. And then she went to Singapore, met up with an accomplice in Singapore for a few days, then went to Indonesia from Singapore, and then eventually worked her way down to Jakarta. And supposedly now she's in Jakarta and she is on the run, and the Philippine government now is trying to put a red notice on her passport to get her deported back to the Philippines. And she's traveling and been traveling on a Philippine passport, which is very interesting because it's like all of the documentation that says she is a Filipino citizenship has been forged by her father and by other people that have very, very high positions of power. Don't know which country they're in, but it looks like this is a big ring that's been going on for a very long time. And there's been a lot of money exchanging hands, and a lot of this money is probably covered in dirtiness. Try to keep it G-rated.
Dirtiness. What was that highway in the Philippines that got built like 18 times?
I can't remember.
I'm looking it up now. Highway in the Philippines that was built many times. See, Mr. Google also assists us in these.
Yes.
In these.
Yes.
20? No. Anyways, we'll get back to that later. I was going to say, I'm struck by all the sort of Ocean's 11 of Alice's escape, and it reminds me a little bit of Carlos Ghosn back in the day. And now, like forever ago. But for those of you who don't remember, Carlos Ghosn was this Brazilian, French, Lebanese executive at Nissan, and he was arrested in Japan for financial misconduct and escaped house arrest in what was quite a spectacle. And he's still wanted. He's still at large, I believe. He's been in Lebanon since then. And there was a whole thing about he was smuggled out of his house in a suitcase and took a train. And it was a very, very long and complicated procedure. and now he's just been stuck in Beirut for the last couple of years, which, to be fair, now maybe isn't the sunniest of
Best place to be.
Yeah, but I mean, back in 2018, I was in Beirut in 2018. That was a pretty sunny deal. Now, yeah, maybe not so much, but yeah. So there are shades of Carlos Ghosn in this, but then also, as you say, I mean, it points to a much larger problem, which we talked about quite in depth last week, uh, where you have just these large transnational rings, and it's both unfortunate and probably not very helpful that it seems like this ring was mostly composed of ethnic Chinese, because tensions between the People's Republic of China and the Republic of the Philippines have really never been worse. Um, and that's largely because of major political ructions over the South China Sea, which is
Yeah.
sort of the most obvious physical manifestation of China's quasi-imperial expansionism, um, which I'm sure will rile all the Chinese listening into no end. But the South China Sea is this basically very large part of the Pacific that ordinarily would be divided into territorial waters between all the neighboring countries, and then everything off of the territorial waters would be open space, it'd be international waters. Uh, China doesn't like that and has very, very strong views. The People's Republic I'm talking of has very strong views on its Chinese waters. It doesn't matter how far away it is. These are Chinese waters, and you can't do anything there without permission from the Chinese government.
Right. And they have created a 9-dash line that goes back. This is a historical viewpoint of the Chinese government, where there's a 9-dash line going essentially from southern China, so Hainan, which is an island off of the south coast of China, kind of around Vietnam, almost all the way down to Borneo. And then it goes over toward the Philippines and then up. And it's not connected, it's dashed. So this whole entire area is essentially under Chinese, I forgot the exact term. I'm coming up blank right now. But essentially their own economic zone, exclusive economic zone, where the Chinese have priority rights for fishing, for oil, for gas, for resources, for anything that they find in here, as well as doing naval exercises and fish and virtually everything that they could take advantage of and the resources that they could potentially take out of this area.
Now, of course, if you're Vietnamese or Filipino or actually Malaysian or Indonesian, you're not very happy about this. And this has also become an issue because the United States has gotten involved. We've coordinated heavily, mostly with the Filipinos, but previously there'd been some coordination with the Vietnamese government as well, in sort of trying to disrupt this effort. Part of the issue is this is a very resource-rich territory, and it's also fairly unexplored. So there's an awareness with fishing, there's an awareness that there's a lot going on. With natural mineral resources, there's an awareness that there are huge natural gas and oil deposits around there somewhere. But because of the political uncertainties, the exploration has not really gone ahead, or it's been delayed, or it's been mostly on the Chinese side, and they don't tell people what they found. So,
and two, we've got to add in that a lot of these areas that are potentially resource rich are claimed by multiple countries. So you have 2 or 3 countries that are fighting over these specific areas and fighting for the exclusive economic zone within these territories.
It's not just the Chinese. There are also overlapping claims between Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Vietnam. And it's not simply with the Chinese, it's also with the other countries as well. So that historically, and also, I mean, just the waters off of Borneo, particularly, have always kind of been a nightmare in terms of overlapping claims.
Land too, they're kind of unstable where you've got, some terrorist groups and things like that over there as well that are setting up shop, because it's very, very far from a capital. It's very, very on the fringe in terms of being I get the thumbs up. Very, very on the fringe in terms of being
double thumbs up, Dave. You dropped it. It
yay.
was so natural. I barely noticed, and I went, "Oh, Dave, yeah, you got it. You got it going on."
Boom.
Yeah, it is a little
2
off
points
the
for
fringe.
Gryffindor.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a conversation about that too. I mean, I always get mixed results. I either get Slytherin or Hufflepuff, which I find
No.
really odd. But I mean, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm Slytherin and Hufflepuff. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows, really? But
And
yeah,
you do look a little puffy though. Let me give you that. You
thanks, Dave.
puffed up rather much in the last couple of years. Just your brain's gotten bigger.
Oh, Dave, I didn't want this to turn into 20 minutes
I didn't
talk
either.
about
I,
my body image issues, but I guess we're going there. No, it is the Wild West out there, man. It's very wild. They've had major problems in Mindanao with various extremist groups operating out of there, and that has definitely blown up in the last couple of years. It's when it comes to fishing, it's been like one of the world centers of illegal fishing. Boats coming out of Malaysia, boats coming out of Thailand, boats coming out of Cambodia, in addition to the other countries we mentioned. I mean, it's really kind of been this giant unregulated zone. And increasingly, the Chinese are trying to regulate it. But of course, that's creating conflicts with all of those countries. And with the Philippines, under the previous president, Duterte, relations with China were actually pretty amicable. His policy was to really balance the Chinese and the American governments. And in the short term, he was pretty successful with that. Um, Obviously, I wouldn't say he was so successful domestically, but in that specific policy of international relations, it really did kind of work. The Philippines were inhabiting some kind of bizarre neutral space. Towards the end of the term, he was leaning more and more towards China. And this actually, I think, is one of the major disagreements between him and the current president, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who came in and during the campaign was not very vocally pro-American, but then came into office and immediate change in policy, very pro-American. We're giving you your bases back. You can come back in. We're going to coordinate on everything. We're going to tell you before we. So there's been a huge change. And because of that, specifically the relationship between the Philippines and the Chinese government has become much more confrontational over the last couple of years, simply because the dynamics of the relationship have changed in a pretty fundamental way, and that the Chinese have hewn to a pretty hardline position, and the Philippines have decided that backing down is not the way to handle it. So they're not, I wouldn't say they're being aggressive. They're just not backing away. Which is certainly is one way of dealing with that kind of aggression, but it's also something that's made the Philippines more and more reliant on American military backing, because the reality of the Philippine Army is, and the Philippines Navy, is that it's undermanned and under-resourced. and not really equipped. It completely equipped to deal with counterinsurgency issues in the South and parts of the North, not so much to deal with what is the second largest, increasingly number two with a bullet Navy in the world. It's just not built for that.
Well, and two, I guess I'm going to jump in real quick. You guys are all probably wondering, why is all of this important? This is important because all of these transnational organized crime groups are doing illegal fishing, they're doing human trafficking, they're doing drug running. They're using this space in the South China Sea to move money, to move product, to move people. And if these countries can't get along with each other, there's going to be no way to stop them. They're going to have to work together to actually solve these problems. And this is a problem that affects every single country in the South China Sea. But these countries are having their territorial squabbles and they're fighting, so they're not able to solve them. So the US is coming in, we're going, okay, we're going to come in and we're going to actually patrol this area and we're going to keep these countries from fighting each other. And the whole entire thing could potentially fall apart if the US cuts and runs and we go, okay, we're done. We're tired of dealing with this. We've got to focus elsewhere. And we have done the whole pivot to Asia, and we've devoted a lot more naval resources and military resources to patrolling and keeping the South China Sea open and keeping prosperity flowing across Asia. But at the same time, if the US were to just cut and run, what's going to happen?
Keeping prosperity flowing across Asia. Who are you, Xi Jinping in Astana 2013? We're going to keep...
We're going to keep prosperity flowing from China to Europe, and we're going to create this whole Belt and Road initiative.
There's an argument to be made that we shouldn't have gotten involved in the first place, that it's not really, even with the pivot, it's not really the place of the U.S. Navy to be keeping the space open. And part of the issue now is we're on some level committed. We're trying to, and you can see over the last couple of years, this is what people in the Naval Command are trying to do. They're trying to create a Philippine Navy capable of defending at least Filipino interests in their territorial waters. But that task gets more and more difficult every year because, and again, this ties us back to our good friend Alice, an endemic issue in the Philippines, as in many countries, and it manifests in many different forms. And I'm not making generalizations here when I say political corruption is a major issue in the Republic of the Philippines, and it affects a lot of sectors of public service, and one of them is the armed forces. And it affects their ability to power project, which makes them dependent on a country like the United States, where essentially Marcos, in his mind, has really outsourced large parts of national security to the United States, which again is not unusual because they're a former colony. That was kind of the relationship we had with them for a very long time.
Well, and two, they're part of our nuclear umbrella in Asia.
They are, which gets talked about almost never. Like when people talk about the nuclear umbrella, they'll always bring up South Korea, they'll always bring up Japan, and the Philippines almost never gets mentioned. Even though in some ways it's one of the most interesting countries because I think it's the only one in Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. So this all of this stuff pinballs onto all the other little things going on. And it's also significant because generally when you poll security analysts and ask them what part of the world is most likely to lead to a major great power conflict, obviously right now you have a big hot spot in the Middle East. You got that big old red zone between Ukraine and Russia, and one or two upcoming areas in Africa, I would imagine. But right now, the South China Sea has consistently been a part of the world where someone goes, if there is a naval incident, if a ship is sunk, if they accidentally fire, God forbid, on a civilian boat from another country, and I could be talking about any country here,
Mhm.
major stuff is almost certain to go down. We keeping it PG, folks. We keeping it PG.
We're raising it from G to PG. Okay.
Oh, I can't keep it. I can't keep it G. I can't keep it G. That's not possible, even though I am G. But yeah, so it is a vital geopolitical region. This is impacting tensions in that region, and it's also playing into the overall picture in Southeast Asia regarding transnational organized crime, in really unveiling how it operates in a lot of interesting ways, and hopefully giving people a template to combat it more effectively, which I'm sure you'll agree with me, Dave. I doubt that will actually happen, but certainly it will be an opportunity for people to go into the workings of this organization and go, oh, these are the apps they're using, these are the techniques they're using, these are the towns they were recruiting people from. This was There's a lot that can be learned from something like this. But of course, the immediate attention is not going to be on that. The immediate political attention is going to be on saving face and blaming people. So I would hate to be whatever customs officer took that $3.5 million. Man, I hope he is the best banker in the world, because he is. I mean, he should be in Singapore right now himself.
I would have bought myself a Cebu Pacific ticket.
Oh yeah,
to Dubai or Bahrain or somewhere that same day.
Oh, I would be lying low and eating at Jollibee in a food court in Dubai so fast you wouldn't have known what happened. This is not a situation where you want to stick around. Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is not a man that I would want to make angry in any way where he would be able to identify me as an individual. His father was Ferdinand Marcos Sr., not the most wonderful human being on the planet. This family has a reputation. So whoever
and what is your name there, sir? What is your name there, good sir?
So he almost certainly half of those people aren't there anymore, one way or another. We'll see what happens. But so right now there's a witch hunt going on, trying to find the people who helped her escape. That's the main focus. I would imagine the other focus is trying to quietly sweep away what evidence of corruption actually entangles people in the government, because I'm sure there was that going on too. So there are a couple things going on. I just want quickly, because you brought it up earlier, and I think it's something that people have heard about, but they probably don't know very much about. Can you just explain how the Interpol red notice process works?
So, from my understanding, Interpol will send out a red notice. If a country wants somebody or somebody is wanted on a charge, then they will relate that information to Interpol. And then Interpol will pass that on to other countries that are Interpol members. So if that person crosses into a foreign country's border at, customs or, immigration or police catch that person, then that person is essentially lit up. Okay, this person needs to be arrested or detained. and brought in either for questioning or deported or however they work it out, where this person is going to be held for a certain amount of time, and then they're going to be either extradited back to that country or somewhere else where that person is going to be held on trial. God, my
And
English sucks. It's embarrassing.
I know how you feel, man. In 2023, 12,260 red notices were issued by Interpol. And recently, they've gotten into a bit of trouble because many people feel that a lot of the red notices are basically political in nature and not actually directly connecting to an actual crime that would be internationally recognized. So that's a bit of an issue. Again, one of the things to sort of remind yourself about the red notice is that they're basically requests.
And it's not a legal requirement for that country to do anything. They don't have to, and they're not 100% obliged to go along with the Interpol red notice.
Interpol doesn't even publish all of the ones they get. So this is not particularly if you've ever watched a movie on Netflix, particularly relating to spies at all. Interpol is like this massive, giant intelligence organization with people all over the world. It's not. It's really an international police union, and whether or not people buy into it is kind of up to each police organization, each sovereign country. So there is a red notice out on her. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be executed. And it's also unclear if Alice even got into Indonesia through a border. And the border between Indonesia and Singapore is in some ways not porous at all. And in some ways, it's very porous. So if she doesn't go through a legally recognized border, there's no way.
Well, then she's going to get deported because she's illegally crossed into Indonesia.
Well, she's illegally crossed into Indonesia using what the Filipino government is going to claim are illegal documents.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if half the things about her being said are true, it's highly likely she's going to have some bona fide document somewhere that she could travel on. And the Republic of Indonesia has similar problems to the Republic of the Philippines in that I wouldn't say everyone's going to take the money, but you're going to find someone who's going to take the money. Eventually, there's going to be someone who's going to take the money, assuming she still has a lot left, because I'm also guessing she paid that $3.5 million, I think, in cash.
Mm-hmm.
So if she is at the epicenter of a massive criminal organization, okay, liquidity is not that hard to get your hands on, but $3.5 million is a lot of money. Even if you raked in $350 million over a couple of years, that's not an insignificant percentage. You just spent a lot of capital, and it's unclear what the next move is.
Yeah. Well, I think you're in that position, and okay, you spend $3.5 million, the price of freedom. You're willing to pay whatever it takes to get out of the Philippines because you know that net is closing on you and that window is closing.
I don't want to go to jail in the Philippines, man. I mean, I don't want to go to jail anywhere. Going to jail, okay, kids, if you're watching this, don't go to jail. Don't do that. Don't commit crimes. Bad, pretty bad. Don't commit crimes. Don't go to jail. Okay, this is a little PSA. It's a little advice. Don't do it. And if you've been accused of crimes that make the Filipino government look bad, really try to avoid going to Filipino prison. It will not go well for you. Even if you have a lot of money, it might get better if you have a lot of money, but it's not going to go well. So Yeah, that's my travel advice. Don't
That's
do
good travel
crimes.
advice.
Don't do crimes. Don't go to prison. Try not to make the government look bad.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom.
1, 2, 3 nuggets.
Yeah, yeah. That's 2 thumbs up
Yep.
twice.
Yeah. And 6 points for whatever, Huffle, Slither, Rin, whatever.
7 points for Ravenclaw. Anyways, uh,
And
so what do
gotta
we want to wrap up with? What's the pot of gold at the end of our rainbow, Dave?
So first thing, I gotta make a correction of myself. So Philippines, I said, is under the nuclear umbrella. We have a mutual defense treaty. So that is a screw up on my end. Different, very different, but very important.
I was a little surprised by that. I'll be honest.
That was a screw up on my end. I thought about it and I did a quick check, and I was like, that didn't sound right when it came out. And mutual defense treaty is the correct terminology. So we have a mutual defense pact with the Philippines. Korea and Japan are under the nuclear umbrella.
Yeah, still significant though, in that I don't think we have a mutual defense treaty with any other country in Southeast Asia.
No, I don't think we do either.
No. So I mean, it still stands out, but it's not quite as dramatic as the old nuclear umbrella.
And then going back to, I guess, takeaways from this, and then kind of tying everything back to the Golden Triangle.
I was like,
do you think it would be
my takeaways, Dave? Some fortune
cookies.
cookies.
Your takeaways.
Yeah.
Crack it open. What message is in there?
Have the Sichuan beef with the little broccoli in it, the black beans. Yeah. White rice on the side. White rice is always on the side. I'm sorry, I just hijacked that. Back to Golden Triangle. I'll leave my Sichuan beef here.
You should start your own Chinese place and call it Golden Triangle.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Probably wouldn't do very. You wouldn't have to do much. I mean,
around here, I mean, Chinese food is wildly popular in India. Of all the things, you could open up a roadside noodle place, call it Golden Triangle, and I swear you could put the tagline on the sign. You could go, well, you couldn't say opium, but like addictively good Chinese.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone would cotton on, quite frankly. But I'm also not sure, like, I don't know if you went into the middle of like hill country in Texas and said Golden Triangle Chinese food, people would be particularly nonplussed. I mean, it's not any crazier than like Golden Panda.
Golden Walk. Golden Panda.
Or Lucky Walk. A lot of Lucky Walks out there. Or Lucky Panda, actually, now that I think of it.
Or Lucky Golden Panda.
Still looking for that Lucky Golden Panda, man. Found the golden ticket, but where's my Lucky Golden Panda?
I don't know.
It's somewhere. Anyways, you were trying to say something about the Golden Triangle. Now I'm talking about golden pandas.
We've hijacked this and we've probably lost everybody.
We've lost everyone. No one knows what the hell's going on. Anyways, we have like 10 seconds left. Dave?
All right, we're done.
We got 10 seconds. On the fringe. This is Gavin Dave on the fringe. See you next week, Dave.